What is going on, people? Um, we are live. I'm in my car, so you know it's something serious. So if you can, please share this wherever you can. We're good to go. Okay. Um, but yeah, please share this. Tune in. Do all the good stuff that we need to do to get this out to people. I'm gonna give it about 1 minute before we get started so that you all can tune in. Hope everybody's doing well. Can do a couple of shout outs over the next minute while we're waiting. Looking at this guy, look at himself in the window of a Geek Squad van. That wasn't weird. He didn't really do anything. He like shook his shirt, then he fixed his glasses, then he did this with his hair. Nothing weird about that at all. Like, but whatever. It's cool. Like he really intensely looking at himself. I thought he was gonna do something like, oh wow, maybe there's like a pimple on my face I need to pop, and he just goes. Um, Give it about 30 more seconds, then we're gonna get started. Like I said, I urge you all to share this wherever you can. Um, because yes, indeed, we have some more tales of the rigged Democratic primaries. Oh, what a surprise! What a surprise! Who we got? Environmental Coffee House. What's going on? All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So, for those of you who know me, you know that when I take the time to stop and do a video, a live video, especially from my vehicle, from my car, that it is some serious stuff because it's not something I do often. Most news that I know, because a lot of it's just kind of like repetitious. I can't wait till I can do a video on it, which I'll have my internet back on Friday. But when it comes to this rigging, you know that can't wait. And I wanted to wait until we got some final answers, some final results before I did this video. So, first of all, Ohio, right? Ohio went staunchly like red. I don't think that was really a surprise. The state did go to Trump, okay? Like Hillary Clinton did not campaign in that state. The Democratic Party is fractured, if not totally broken, in Ohio. And yet, there were some consultants and media heads on Twitter trying to blame the Green Party for their utter failure in trying to at least pretend like you're going to, enact policies that the people want to see happen, like Medicare for all, single payer health care, or, be anti war for once in your freaking lives. Things like that, bringing jobs back to the state. Like, Democrats aren't going to promise that stuff because they don't care about it, right? And they are so surprised when they lost. It's crazy to me how the Democrats call the Green Party irrelevant. It's crazy to me that Jill Stein only got 1% of the national vote. It's crazy to me that the Green Party is supposedly just totally unorganized 100% of the time, if you ask any of the Democrats. And yet, they're just organized enough, just enough, to cause the Dems to lose every election that they have. Like, that's a weird. This got to be a huge leap in logic or a mistake being made somewhere in that logic. But whatever. Um, so that happened. But what was worse was what happened because Ohio has like voter suppression laws out the ass. Like that's like what they do is suppress votes because it's the state that determines the outcome of the election most of the time. But what happened in Michigan was worse. So on election night and after, I was in contact with Shauna McCnally, who's running for the House of Representatives in Michigan, the Michigan State House. She was keeping me plugged in about her race. in the race for Abdul, because obviously she was following him closely. She was running for office, right? First thing she tells me, in a race where literally they did an exit polling, of course, which is what you want to do if you're a candidate. You want to have people taking, doing like a little tally of how you're doing, how confident they were, if people were wearing your shirts, how confident they were when they said that, yeah, I absolutely voted for you, running up to them and saying that they voted for you, things like that, which tend to be pretty reliable, usually. Now, in a precinct where someone on her campaign did exit polling where literally every single person came out and said they voted McNally, they voted McNally, they voted McNally, they voted McNally, McNally. They talked to well over 60 people, and yet supposedly at that point only got 60 votes, while their opponent, who really nobody knew, got 300 already. Then we come to find out later that there were people from the opposite campaign pretending and actively telling people that they were election inspectors. But they were not election inspectors. They were on the opposite campaign. But it gets better. So like I said, Shauna McCnally was not only tracking her election, but her and Abdul El-Sayed's campaign were really close. So she was tracking his election as well. Now, as I'm reading the New York Times calling the race at about 28% reporting, I'm getting a call from Shauna telling me that Abdul's ahead by 1,000 votes by the tally in Michigan. So, and they were ahead in reporting because the state obviously is going to probably get the reporting back before the national news does. Nobody else had reported this, by the way, not that I know of, but New York Times did. So this is within seconds, people. Hey, have you seen this thing about New York Times saying that Abdul lost already? The night just started. It's 20. Well, that's weird because he's winning by 1,000 votes. How have they called the race for him? Here's where it gets more interesting. Mind you, I don't know if you all know this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did go to Michigan and spoke with Abdul to endorse him and some other candidates. And Shauna McCnally was on that speaker list. She spoke at the rally for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Abdul. And they actually know each other. She got pictures with her mom, like Alexandria Ocasio got pictures with Shauna's mom. And it was a great relationship. Tons of energy. I don't know if you all saw the videos. Tons of energy, though. In the place where she lives, Abdul won. Shauna got obliterated. Here's where it gets crazier. In where the number one Muslim demographic is, and obviously Abdul was galvanizing the Muslim groups, where the number one Muslim demographic is, and it's not like a little bit of Muslims, there's a lot of Muslims there. I believe it was in Dearborn. Abdul gets throttled against his opponent. So all these things are going on, and so me, what I said. Oh, hell no, you better be at the Board of Elections first thing in the morning. So Shauna, in her campaign, she goes with the idea that, okay, we're going to request a recount. Just in her home precinct, people, they said, okay, we can recount it. We need $9,000. $9,000 to recount for your own election, when in all reality, recounts should be absolutely mandatory. At the very bare minimum, one hand counted recount. Because we were looking for several things, one of them being, did they actually count the ballots? Or did they just make some numbers up off the top of their head that kept the races, whether it be Shauna's, Abdul's, or anyone else's, but if they kept the races within the margin, right? There's a margin where you can't get a recount unless you pay for it, period. Like, you can't get a recount. And every loss that a progressive took was right within that margin, where it wasn't large enough to allow recount, but it was decisive enough to say, well, they were just more popular. They ran a better campaign. And so all the progressives lost within a margin where they're now forced to pay, just in Shauna's case, $9,000 to get a recount in one precinct. So if you are a candidate who is working with a limited means, how exactly are you supposed to do what I feel is what I consider due process? I feel like every single ballot should be hand counted. And I even take it a step further by saying you need to have one Democrat, one Republican, one Democrat, one Republican, watching and observing, and they alternate whoever's hand counting the ballots, watching and observing to make sure that they're not, sometimes ballots just get thrown away. Don't know how that happens, but sometimes that happens. How is a state legislator, people, supposed to afford to recount their entire race when one precinct costs $9,000? And this is what we call election rigging. This is the definition of this, people. What am I paying taxes for if the candidate who I believe should have won requests a recount and has to pay $9,000 out of her own pocket? What am I paying taxes for? What are you paying taxes for? Why does it require $9,000? Take some of the damn money from the defense budget. They can pay for all the recounts in the country. Just 1/15 of 1% of the defense budget can pay for all the recounts in the country. Understand what we saw with Shauna McCnally's campaign, with Abdul's campaign, similar to what we saw with the campaigns in Illinois. We've seen them really all over the country. This is Bernie Town. Michigan is Bernie Central. Michigan is where the exit polling said that he got obliterated, and it turned out to be the total opposite. This is where Bernie Sanders went to stomp and galvanize the progressives, the Muslims, the minorities, and the people who have been hurt by NAFTA, and the people who are tired of superdelegates. This is Bernie country, people. If you saw the rallies, if you saw the numbers, if you saw the people that were out there, if you saw the energy, this is Bernieville. Which is exactly why. And then somebody who, I'm not going to put any names out there because I can't say, because it would put them in a weird situation with their personal life. But they are familiar with one of the campaigns in Michigan. And that campaign openly said they're bringing in the big dogs to take down Abdul. They're bringing in the big dogs to take down Abdul. That is what they told them. What do you mean? You got your consultants, you got your campaign managers, you got your canvassers. Yeah, right, like the establishment canvassers. We know better than that. But like, you got your people here already. What do you mean the big dogs? What could you possibly mean by that? What they mean are those who come in where they have one job and one job only. Rig this shit because we can't afford to lose Michigan to progressives. We got a lot of money to make sure that Michigan stays in turmoil. We have a lot of money to make sure Michigan is always on the like the crux of like, yeah, we're kind of creating jobs, but we can't have too many jobs, and we can't have a governor Think about this, people. Flint, Michigan is still a thing. These people still don't have water. It is not by accident. The corporations are trying to gentrify the area because Flint, Michigan is a historic area. It is a promising area. It used to be a flourishing area. Great basketball players, athletes, academics have came from Flint, Michigan. Great businessmen have came from Flint, Michigan. It's almost like Little Havana in Miami, or Wynwood in Miami, or Brooklyn and Williamsburg in New York, or Soho, which is Southern Hudson in New York City when the artists moved in. They're great minds who come from this area. They're known for certain things, but most of all, they had super cheap real estate, and and a lot of population surrounding it, and a lot of free area around it that could be converted for corporate dollars. That is why they're poisoning the people in Flint. It's because they want them to leave. If you have a government as progressive as Abdul, if you have state legislators who are as progressive as Shauna McCnally, they are not going to be, and not only are they not going to be able to like be successful with poisoning Flint in those residents. And it's not just Flint, Michigan. Detroit is having issues as well. But if you have progressives in power like that, not only can you not just kill people with lead poisoning for fun, but you're going to be held accountable. You're going to be held accountable. And one thing that scares people, politicians specifically, more than progressive policies, is being held accountable for the fucked up policies that they passed in the past. And Michigan, this is the same governor, people, the same governor who used Michigan's tax dollars to fund his defense against poisoning the people of Michigan. And you think for 1 second that they're not going to make sure, because if Abdul wins, it's over for them. It's over. They know that. If Shauna McCnally and people like her win, it is over for them. Michigan goes back to normal. The power is back in those people's hands. This is Bernie country, and Abdul gets beat by 10, 11 points? And I love how Tim Canova put it yesterday. And I'm going to do a video about that. Got some direct quotes from Tim Canova regarding election rigging in the Michigan election. But it's crazy to me that these numbers, people, always manage to reflect the flawed polling methods based off of the use of land, which is archaic and proven to be unsatisfactory when determining the outcome of an election, like a legitimate election. They always manage to reflect those polls almost exactly, except in California, where like Pat Harris in the jungle primary was actually winning against Dianne Feinstein, winning against her according to the local polls. And they beat him just enough that he can't challenge it, that it looks like, oh, he just was unpopular, when that thing, in fact, was not the case. I always talk about this. Before I go, this is what I'm going to leave you all with. We say we need to build a new party. I see you, Green Party. I hope that you continue to build. I see you, Movement for a People's Party. I hope you continue to build. People's Independent Party. PIP, I see you, and I hope you all continue to build. But parties don't mean shit if we don't control the infrastructure, if we do not start calling out these members of the Board of Elections by name, if you do not start calling out the Brenda Snipes of the world, like the one that Brenda Snipes, if you don't know, is the one who destroyed the ballots in the Tim Canova race. If we don't start calling out the Brenda Snipes of the world, if we don't start taking over the infrastructure, if we don't start introducing ranked choice voting on the agendas when we're having these propositions, if we don't start calling these Board of Elections out by name and getting them removed, it doesn't matter what party you're part of. It doesn't matter. So yes, I'm not saying don't organize parties. I'm not saying don't run for office, because we need people to run. How else are we going to know whenever people are getting screwed over? Every victory that we have cannot be merely decided by and defined by how the establishment defines victories, because that's how they will demoralize you. They will believe that because you were not successful by their definition of success, that you were not victorious in the long run. Because in a situation like me and Shauna McCnally discussed like how to move forward, she knew like we have to go get a recount. And now we know that just to count one precinct in Michigan costs $9,000. That is election rigging. That is obscene. That is disgusting. I want to know where my taxes are going. If you're a Michigander, Michigander, I don't know what y'all are called. You're going to have to let me know. But if you are in Michigan and you are watching this video, you need to call your legislators. You need to call your board of elections and ask, why in the hell does a candidate have to pay $9,000 to the government to hand count ballots that should be automatically audited and recounted anyway, barring a concession speech or an official concession? Why? Isn't that what you're paying for? It's crazy, right? When elected officials want to defend themselves in lawsuits, they use your money. When they want to give themselves raises, they use your money. When they want to pay for the roads, they use your money. When they want to pay for you to have a vehicle that's privately owned, whatever reason, they use your money. When they want to subsidize healthcare, they use your money to subsidize the healthcare and then still say you have to pay the insurance companies who pay them money. But when you want to recount your election for your state house, for candidates that you voted for, that are going to be representing you, you got to pay for that too. Or the candidate has to pay for that. So whenever it benefits the establishment, you got to pay for it. But if it ever benefits the progressive, if it ever benefits the people, best believe that we're going to pay for it. Every single time. So nobody really knows what our money's going to, except for raises for them. So once again, just to do a brief recap in case you're just joining in, Abdul El-Sayed lost in Dearborn, which has the largest Muslim population. Not only did he lost decisively, which makes no sense. Bernie Sanders, this campaign for this guy. Alexandria Ocasio campaigned for this guy. Abdul was a stand. The support he had was just tremendous. They increased turnout. More people came out to vote for this primary than the 2016 Democratic primary election. Do you think that they came out to vote for the person where I guarantee you don't even know who his opponent was? And I'm not going to say the name because I'm not into promoting the other side, the opposition, if you will. But you don't even know. But we're going to try to make an argument that she increased voter turnout? Nah. Abdul did. So on top of that, Abdul increased voter turnout loss by a specific enough margin that he did not allow to demand a recount, but it looks decisive. Shauna McCnally, her opponent, had people going to the polls and lying about being election inspectors. When her campaign conducted exit polling in a precinct where they, had people coming in the Shauna McCnally shirts and just excited, going up and giving her and her son hugs about how excited they are to be voting for her. They lost 300 to 60 at that point before the official tallies came in. Or they were losing 300 to 60, even though they questioned much more than 60 people. Everybody they were touching was saying, yeah, I'm definitely voting for you, Shauna. Definitely voting for you, Shauna. Definitely voting for you, Shauna. She lost in the district or in a precinct where her aunt was like a principal of one of the only schools in the area. Everybody knows her there. Shauna McCnally sounds everywhere, but she got decisively beaten. In the area, mind you, Abdul and her campaign work together. They know each other. They're associated with each other. In her own precinct, Abdul won, but she lost. But in the Muslim precinct, Abdul lost. It's almost as if they're flipping the votes or throwing away ballots, or like they're flipping the results. That's a common thing that you do that with voting machines. It's easier to do with voting machines, harder to do with paper ballots. And the whole reason you have paper ballots, by the way, is so that you can hand recount them in case of a situation like this. But Shauna McCnally, once again, tried to do this and had to pay, or is being demanded to pay, $9,000. And I love the fact that somebody just said that. But let's blame the Russians for why the Democrats are going to get their asses handed to them by the Republicans. Let's blame the Russians. It's so insane to me. It's crazy to me that when we see clear cheating going on, when exit polling is more, Russians don't have to cheat the elections, when the Democrats are just so damn good at it already. And even when the Democrats get caught, they are never held accountable. On the other side of that fence, Russians don't have to cheat the elections for Republicans either because they're so damn good at gerrymandering that they're ahead of the game when it comes to cheating. They cheated 2 years in advance to maintain those seats. But let's keep talking about Russia and Putin and Trump meeting with Russians and all that nonsense to deflect and distract from the very reality that we are living in an oligarchy. Our democracy doesn't mean shit. The fabric of our democracy, the integrity of our democracy is ripped at the seams and non-existent. Everybody was celebrating, well, on the establishment side. Remember, because they were gaslighting us, the Russians are already preparing. Just in case they couldn't rig it, just in case the turnout was too good for Abdul. Just in case. Oh my God. By the way, the precincts that the Democrats didn't have some type of stronghold in, Abdul won. Didn't know if you knew that. I'm going to try to do a more detailed analysis of that race and see if we can see the similarities and the comparisons between what I observed in California and other races too, but specifically California. Wherever you see Democratic strongholds, all of a sudden the progressive gets their ass whooped, even though they increased the turnout in those areas. And yet, in the places where the Democrats don't have a stronghold, they always win. It's a really weird coincidence. All these coincidences. We don't call those coincidences where I'm from. We call that empirical data, because there's no such thing as a coincidence in politics. So with that being said, people, I am back tomorrow officially. You will see me back in the studio doing my thing, releasing videos. I got some crazy information about a couple of the Facebook groups, like some CIA connected deep state stuff dropping tomorrow on Facebook and on Justin Forum, and I'm probably gonna keep putting it on YouTube too, because I know a lot of you are on Facebook, but you should be on Justin Forum if you're not there yet. JustinForum.com, JUSTNFORM. Make sure you follow me there. Other than that, people, make sure that you subscribe. We are almost, I want to tell y'all where we're at. It's a surprise. I'm going to put it like this. We gained a couple of thousand subscribers in the last couple of weeks because of the work that we've been doing. And just, like I said, objectivity, people. This network, what we stand for, is for the progression of the movement, nothing else. Nothing more, nothing less. Progression of the movement. Progression of independent voices. Progress. That's it. So, please subscribe if this is your first time stopping by. And with that being said, always remember, more than anything else, Find your balance. Peace.